Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 players in the NBA right now who have not won an MVP. This is going to be current day players only, so this will not include legends. If you guys want me to make a video going over the greatest players of all time to never win MVP, just let me know in the comments down below. And before we get started with this list, I just wanted to say these rankings may seem to vary, but each situation is very different. For example, our first player, Carmelo Anthony, is not on a roster right now and is clearly far from his potential MVP days. However, at some point he was in that conversation, so going forward it should be understood that the ranking of these players could be based on how they're playing now, but for some cases it's based on their career and or skill set at some point in their career. I'll also be crowning each player on the list an MVP, but this does not take away from any other winners of the award. After all, they won it for a reason. Without further ado, coming in at number 10, Carmelo Anthony. The season I'd give Carmelo his very own MVP would be his 2012-2013 campaign. Melo averaged 28.7 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists on 46% from the field and 32% from the three, leading the New York Knicks to the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, boasting an impressive 52-20 record. Melo has an incredibly polarizing career. This mostly stems from the situation where he demanded his way out of Denver, forcing the Knicks to give up more assets than needed to acquire him at an earlier time, where if Melo would have just waited for his contract to end, he could have signed with Denver in free agency and they would have been able to stay way more competitive without sacrificing the depth that they rightfully had to get Melo. It was just a big drama thing in the first place. It's clearly too late for Melo to win an MVP at this stage in his career, but his skill set and iconic play style will never be forgotten. Number 9, Devin Booker. The year I'd pick for Book to win his MVP is 2021. The Suns finished with an incredibly impressive 64-18, which was first in the Western Conference, and Book played in 67 of 82 of those games. He averaged an impressive 26.8 points, 4.8 assists, and 5 rebounds a game on 47% from the field and 30% from downtown. Devin has had a really great career since pairing up with Chris Paul. I mean, I think it speaks in volume if you watch the Suns, what he's done to his game. He's much more poised. He seems to understand the game a lot more. I'm hoping we see him take another step with facilitating this next year. I just don't think he'll win MVP in his career just because his style of play is almost becoming a lost art. Certain people respect the way he plays his game, but a lot of the mainstream media is just quick to nitpick at their issues with not only Devin, but the Suns. And I mean, I guess it's fair for the Suns part of it. They were expected to win the finals 2 years in a row, and they were actually up 2-0 on the Bucks, and they just struck out both times. This doesn't mean Devin won't continue to have a dominant career, but MVP is something that his Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame teammate, Chris Paul, couldn't even win. So I think that sentiment speaks volumes in its own. Number 8, Paul George. The year I'd pick for Paul George to win MVP would be his 2018 campaign. I'm sure you all remember the MVPG chants and tweets that started to occur all over the place. Paul averaged 28 points, 8.2 rebounds, 4.8 assists, and in a very impressive 2.2, which was league leading, steals per game. The Thunder slipped a lot in the standings, and it was actually to the 6th seed. And this is partially that this and his injury is partially the reason why he was not the MVP this season. Even Paul George, like I said, faced his fair share of injuries. I'm pretty sure he had a rotator cuff or shoulder injury that was really not good. He actually had to get surgery. Paul is an electrifying player to watch. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But it almost seems as if he knows as well as everyone else that he has never been the number one guy in the league. Think of it like this. There's LeBron, then Kevin Durant, then Paul George. You know, he's almost in that Clyde Drexler situation where it's like, yes, the talent and the stats is undoubtedly there, but Michael Jordan exists, so we're probably going to give him the MVP. There's nothing wrong with Paul not winning an MVP. I think he's found a great home in LA. He's from LA, and I believe he knows and plays his role very well there alongside of Kawhi Leonard. Again, at every chance I can get, I'll say I'm stoked to watch the Clippers play this year. But yeah, I don't think he'll win an MVP. Number 7, Damian Lillard. The year I'd choose for Dame to be crowned MVP would be his 2018 to 2019 season. He averaged 26 points, 7 assists, and 4.5 rebounds on 44% from the field and 37% from 3, leading the Blazers to a very impressive 3 seed, boasting a 53-29 record. This was probably the peak of Dame's ability to get his team involved. I think how well CJ played in the playoffs is a big testament to this. I know MVP is a regular season award, but watching Dame and CJ go crazy in the playoffs was just an entirely different experience, especially that Nuggets series and especially Game 7. I mean, it was shot for shot of just pure hoops. If you haven't seen that series, I completely advise you go back and watch it. At this point, it would take somewhat of a miracle for Dame to win MVP. Being the best point guard in the league is hard enough right now. I mean, his skill set is undoubtedly next level, but I think he'll just continue to sit in around superstar status, and he probably will not win an MVP. The year I'd pick for Kyrie to win MVP would be his 2018 campaign. Kyrie averaged 25.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists on almost 50-40-90 splits, leading the Celtics to the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. This was Kyrie's first stab at being his own leader on his own team, and unfortunately, he battled a lot of injuries towards the end of the year. I'm pretty sure he actually had surgery in his knee, and then it got infected. I think I'm remembering that correctly, but he was only able to play 60 out of 82 of those games. Kyrie is definitely a hard player to rank on a list like this, only because of the fact that if you were to ask me who's the most skilled player on this list, I'd probably with no hesitation say Kyrie. Honestly, I don't know another person who can put the ball on the floor and create the magic that he does and with the quickness he does, and he shoots at such an efficient clip. However, I don't think Kyrie will win an MVP in his career, and that's more than okay. Kyrie has been playing the game at his pace his entire career, and he doesn't need to change a thing for anyone. Number 5, Dwight Howard. The year I'd choose for Dwight Howard to win MVP is his 2010 campaign. He played 78 of 82 games that year, won the Defensive Player of the Year, averaged 22 points, 14 rebounds, and a league-leading 2.5 blocks on nearly 60% from the field. He led the Magic to a 52-20 record, coming in at the 2 seed in the East. Dwight's prime seemingly came and went in a flash, and it's kind of upsetting, especially when you consider the fact that he doesn't get the respect he deserved. Dwight didn't make the 75 top players list that just came out a couple months ago, and people always ask if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer or not. I mean, to me, after he got that ring with LA, there's definitely no question in my mind at all. In my opinion, his stint in Orlando was enough to solidify him. Just look at someone like T-Mac, who ironically is also in the Hall of Fame, mostly because of his stint in Orlando. I mean, obviously he had some iconic moments with the Rockets, but he has way less resume success than Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard is a 3-time Defensive Player in the Year in a row. So it's obvious that it's way too late in his career for Dwight to win MVP, but for the 4 to 6 years he was dominant, it was definitely must-see basketball. Number 4, Anthony Davis. The year I'd pick for Anthony Davis would be his 2017 to 2018 season. He boasted stats of 28 points per game, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks. He remained healthy, playing in 75 of 82 games. This is a case where he never actually would have won MVP, but as far as Anthony's career goes, this was to me his most dominant point. This season was the last real season where you could see Davis fired up and excited to play with the Pelicans. I'm sure you all remember the drama saga, including the That's All Folks t-shirt, but that's besides the point. I don't think Anthony will ever win an MVP, and this is me being a little extra hypercritical, and it's because I'm not doubting his skill set too, but for some reason he just always leaves me with a bit of disappointment. He possesses every single skill to be the best power forward in the league. He's in a situation where he's playing with one of the greatest facilitators ever to play in LeBron James on a team that desperately needs a clear-cut offensive first option, and yet you still hear, quote-unquote, I haven't shot a basketball since April. And then the second the heat gets turned up and everyone's on his head in Insta comments or wherever the videos have been posting, he starts posting a video of him training with Lethal Shooter. I know that was just kind kind of a bit of a separate tangent, but with the way players act nowadays, it's just sometimes corny. If Anthony stepped up and took over the Lakers this year and proved me wrong, as a basketball fan, I would be more than happy. It kills me to think that this dude isn't even 30 years old, and it seems like I watched his entire prime and career come and go. This partially has to do with the fact that he's made of glass, but I just hope he comes out and shocks not only me, but the whole world next year. I would do nothing but root for him. Number 3, Joel Embiid. The year I'd pick for Joel Embiid to win his MVP is actually last year, 2021. Joel averaged 30 points, 11.7 rebounds, and 4 assists a game, along with a block and a steal. The 76ers finished tied with the second seed in the Eastern Conference with 51 wins. What Joel did this season was nothing short of amazing. I'd want to compare him to Hakeem or Shaq, but he just plays like a mixture of both. He's so dominant on the glass, he gets out and running in transition, and he can even, as of recently, put the ball on the floor and hit a little step back on you. It's been remarkable to watch Joel's game transfer and grow as he's gotten older, especially when you think about the crazy fact he started playing basketball at 15. A little late starter, but definitely not a late bloomer. Joel is one of the few players on this list that I actually think can still win an MVP in his career, but only time will tell. Number 2, Chris Paul. Chris Paul has been considered for the MVP 3 times in his career, but we're going to be talking about the 2008 season he had. He actually finished second in MVP voting that year, and he averaged 21 points, 12 assists, 4 rebounds, and a very impressive 3 steals a game. Not to mention, he also led the Hornets to the 1 seed with 56 wins in the regular season. A huge part of Chris Paul's MVP campaign in 2008 was based on the fact of he just made everyone around him better, and without him, the New Orleans Hornets would have literally been useless. I mean, people probably wouldn't have even been buying tickets to the games that year if Chris Paul wasn't playing. It's definitely more than likely too late for Chris Paul to win the award at this stage in his career, considering his age and position. However, that doesn't take away from the remarkable display of skill and surprising youth since going vegan at age 36. So shout out to the point guard. I really wish that he could have won an MVP. And coming in at number 1, Kawhi Leonard. I just made a whole video talking about Kawhi Leonard and praising him. If you guys haven't seen that, I would check it out. It was the last upload. Should be popping up on the screen. But Kawhi is the perfect example of someone who's been the best player in the league at some point, undoubtedly, but has not won an MVP. It's kind of hard to break the barrier from best player and most valuable player. And then inside that barrier, you have to break the barrier from most valuable player to most valuable player on the most winningest, successful team. You know, there's just a lot of weight in that type of MVP. I mean, you look at the last 2 winners, which was Jokic back to back. Without Jokic, that Nuggets team, I mean, it would be a horse without a head. They'd just be running around clueless. And that's not a slight to the Nuggets. It's just that the Nuggets have invested so much stock, so much time, so much idea into the system of having Jokic that if he were somehow not there or not playing or injured in some sort of manner, that they would be so much worse that Jokic is that valuable, if that makes sense. Again, that was kind of a side tangent, but the reason Kawhi hasn't won an MVP could be due to the load management, the injuries, or just the lack of situation and social media boost. I'm sure if you guys are avid users of social media, you know Kawhi is not active on any of them. I'm pretty sure he might have an Instagram or like a Facebook or something, but you know, he's a like we said, he's a quiet and fun guy. The year I'd choose for Kawhi to win his MVP would be 2016 to 2017. He averaged 25 points, 6 rebounds a game, and 4 assists per game on almost 50% from the field and 39% from three-point land. He led the Spurs to the 2nd seed, finishing 61-21, only behind the very undoubtedly impressive 73-9 Warriors. There was a huge narrative surrounding Kawhi and the Spurs that year. Surprisingly, though, it was a good one. People believed that the Spurs were somehow going to dethrone. You know, they were the only Achilles heel to the Warriors. You know, there's still people out there, and I'm not talking just for San Antonio fans, but there's still people out there to this day that would probably tell you the Spurs would have beat the Warriors had Kawhi not gone down with the Zaza Pachulia-induced injury. As for if Kawhi is going to win an MVP in his career again, I would say if he played more than 65 games a season, yeah, it's very possible. I mean, he would be the best player on one of the best teams in the West. However, I think Kawhi is one of those players who understands the importance of rest and taking everything a day at a time, and that the postseason is what matters most. So I just can't really imagine after facing an injury like an ACL tear that he would be very eager to get into playing, more than 35 minutes a night and having these crazy stats like MVPs do. But that's all for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this type of video. This is my first time ever doing a list, and it was pretty fun to kind of make the list and then reread it and look around and switch people around. There's definitely a lot of opinion in this list. So if you guys have your opinions and thoughts and you want people switched around, don't be afraid to leave them down in the comments. You guys know I love the support and the feedback. If you guys like this video, please be sure to leave it a like and subscribe and click that bell next to my name so you guys can get notifications whenever I upload. I appreciate everything you guys have been doing and showing support recently. Peace.